Hi, my name's Dan, and in this video I'm going to be talking about how to find some sources for textures for use in your projects. And I'm not actually even going to open Unreal in this video. I'm just going to look at some sources. I've got a browser open. I did a quick search. I just typed in something like free textures, and I found some good sources. The first one I want to focus on here is this 3D textures source. And there are various categories here. There's some featured ones at the front. There's not huge numbers here, but there's quite a good range of different things. If you clicked on the wood there, for example, you'd come through to here. So there's several wood textures here, and there would be more that you can get by clicking through. And these are collected sets of textures that work together for this. Here's another set, which is the alien set, and I clicked through on this alien flesh out 2 and got a larger picture of it here. I've just preloaded everything just to save time and get rid of adverts and things like that. And then you click through on there and it gives you the textures that you can actually download. Now, you may know about the different types of textures, but let me quickly talk through them and the different terms that are used. So the normal texture, that's the kind of visible stuff that you see, is sometimes known as a color map or a diffuse map. The word diffuse comes from the kind of lighting that it interacts with. There are three components of normal lighting or of the standard lighting calculations that are done inside 3D engines, which are diffuse, which generally means the color of the surface, ambient, which means the color of the atmosphere and this kind of bouncing around, and then the specular, which means shininess and shiny highlights on it. So there are various other things that are done in rendering as well. There's a set of textures here that reflect some of that. So the first one here is the diffuse map. The second one here is a displacement map. We'll see a tool later on that will show you how displacement maps are used, but that's very similar to a height map, which is so where the lighter it is, it's just black and white, but the lighter it is, the higher it is out of the surface and the black is embedded into the surface. This odd blue coloured one is a normal map, and normal refers to the normal vectors, which is it's used to calculate bump mapping. Bump mapping can be done from a height map or a displacement map, but it's easier to do the calculations if you pre-calculate a normal map. And they always look like this. They've got this kind of blue, cyan, pinky colour to them. This one here is an ambient occlusion map. This is more recent advance in graphics, which is this actually affects the ambient light that's on the surface, on the principle that some areas of your ambient light might be stronger than others, depending on whether things are surrounded by other stuff. Well, this is what ambient occlusion means: is that if you were at the top of a skyscraper, the ambient light that you're getting from the world around is a lot more than you'd get from the bottom of the skyscraper where it's surrounded by other buildings. That ambient light is being occluded by other things around it. And the final one here is a specular map, sometimes known as a gloss map, which is about the shiny highlights that you get. And this particular one, actually the highlights are a green as well, which matches the diffuse map back at the other end. When you search for textures, some sources will just give you the diffuse maps. Some sources will give you a range of other things as well. The one that I found I'm most likely to want to get hold of is a normal map. Okay, so this one here. No, I'll come to that in a minute. That's me searching. There's a few other sources I'm just going to quickly flick through. There's Textura here, textura.com. There's texturelib.com, and and Texture Ninja, and these have all got ranges of textures that are free to for you to download and use in your projects. You probably want to look out for some of the sources that you'll get will have particular conditions on the use of their assets in your projects. And quite a common one is what's called attribution, which means you're free to use it however you like, as long as somewhere easily accessible in your project you give a credit to the creators of the texture or whatever asset it is that you're using. So I was going to show this. So this was a search that I did. It's just Google Images. Google Images is a brilliant source of all sorts of stuff. And I've typed in, as you can see, free tileable textures with normal map. So the first thing to say there is about tileable textures are really useful because they're textures where if you repeat them next to each other, it looks seamless. If you've got a lot of them repeated on surfaces, you obviously get this kind of effect where you can tell that it's been repeated. But for a lot of uses, tileable textures are great. They're not, I've tried creating them myself. I'm not very good at it. I'm not an artist. I would, if you feel like you're good at art and want to create your own textures, by all means, go for it. And certainly, photography is a great way of getting started in creating your own textures. But there are so many texture resources out there these days on the internet that it's not necessary to do that for hobby projects. I'm just going to follow through a couple of these things that have been brought up here in this search. So you'll see in this search that mostly it's brought up normal maps. For me, there are a few things here which have got which will give you a bunch of textures that are together. But if you search for a normal map and then you click through to the original source, it's quite common that you will find the diffuse map and maybe other textures in there as well. So a couple that I clicked on, there was this 36 pre-ground textures, which obviously showed there's some diffuse map and some normal maps there, and there's a collection here of textures so that you can get. So these are matched together with diffuse maps and normal maps. I also clicked through on one and found it was on Pinterest, and Pinterest can be a good source of images of all sorts of things. And this seemed to come from a thing called Texturize Club. So I clicked through that and found and then went back up to the top of the source, and it's a place where people are posting textures with accompanying maps. So here we've got a patchwork tiles with a diffuse, a displacement map, and normal, and a specular. Similar. So it's another source of textures. The last one that I want to show you actually is a place that I love, which is a place where you can actually create your own normal displacement maps, ambient occlusion, etc. It's not necessarily as good as a proper artist doing this by hand and working out where the displacement should be, because really all it does is it takes the brightness of a picture. So this is the source for this particular kind. It's got two sources that you can get in. It's an online resource and it does things dynamically. You can switch to a source which has got 4 pictures there, which will tile over a cube. I prefer the height map. I'm not very good at 3D texturing and cubes and stuff I'm thinking about it. I'd rather just work on one surface at a time. And this particular image is this concentric rings, which then has given this normal map here. You can see there's buttons up here. You can get a displacement map. There's an ambient occlusion map and a specular map. And all of these basically is guessing based on the input texture. Let's pick another texture and have a quick look at this. Go back to the normal map. So I just happen to have some classic album covers here. What should we pick? Let's have a Go on then. Let's see how that comes out. So we've got the picture here. The normal map obviously looks weird, and then we've got that. Oh, yes, we can drag this around. Um, this has given us a bump mapped version of this classic ABBA cover. It's quite dark. Let's choose a different one. Let's have, where was Patty Smith? She was a good one. There we go. So it's a simpler picture, so it comes out looking better. And again, you can see it's just the light areas are being brought out as being lifted up from the surface, and the darker areas are laid back into the surface. So it's not perfect because her hair's dark, and so it makes her hair look like it's embedded down into the surface. But you can get, again, you can get the displacement map, the ambient occlusion map, again, all based on the light dark and the specular map there. There's also for each one of these, there's some sliders you can move, so you can change the strength uh, of the bump mapping and the level. So that's kind of like the base level, in and out, blur and sharp. So if I blur that, kind of get vague feeling. That can be useful for getting rid of noise. There's all sorts of settings here. This is a great place, just though, to get some test textures, to get some bump mapping going, or if you know what you want, for example, out of bump mapping, and have created a height map, then you can plug it in here and it'll give you the normal map. So that's a whole lot of sources that you can use for getting your textures, for information on how to use these textures. See some others of my videos. But the internet's a great resource. There are loads and loads more sources that I have not highlighted here. So go and have a look for yourself. And that's it from me for now.